Brendan, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Julia.
Thank you very much indeed. We've just been talking about the royals, and I wasn't going to ask you about this, but very briefly, do you have an opinion whether or not Prince Andrew should be stripped of all his royal titles? Some MPs even talking about how we should have an Act of Parliament, which is apparently the only way of doing it.
Well, I'm a Republican, so I don't think there should be any royal titles for anybody. That's my point of view. But, I was one of those people who ever so slightly defended Prince Andrew in the sense that I think everyone is innocent until proven guilty.
True.
However, what we've heard over the past few days and weeks, it does seem that he behaved very, very badly, and particularly in relation to asking his personal security detail to look into this to Virginia, exploiting his position effectively to try and get one over on this young woman who was accusing him of quite serious crimes. This is not good behavior. It is not becoming of one of the children of Queen Elizabeth II, who has enormous respect in this country. So there are massive question marks dangling over his future, for sure.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the enormous question marks dangling over the future of Gaza, with what looked like end to the tenuous ceasefire we've been in for the past week, where we've seen 2 IDF soldiers who have died. Israel claims at the hands of Hamas, and retaliation claims the hospitals claiming some 45 people in Gaza have been killed. Now, how many of those were actually, let's face it, actually killed by Hamas, who've been going around executing anyone they darn well feel like, it would certainly appear? We don't know, but we know that Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner are heading over to Israel amid concerns about the Gaza ceasefire. What do you make of what's going on?
Yeah, the ceasefire is in a bit of trouble. I mean, this is not unusual for when a conflict comes to an end. Yeah. It does often drag on. I mean, not only for days, but sometimes for years. These things are hard to fix. But what I find so striking is that already we have leftists across the UK, across Europe, in fact, accusing Israel of breaking the ceasefire, when in fact Hamas has broken it many times over the past week. They have failed to return the deceased hostages that they promised they would return as part of phase 1. They are shooting Palestinians left and right, who they accuse of plotting with Israel or being spies for Israel, all that kind of usual nonsense. That's a violation of this supposed end to violence as well. And yet, of course, the finger is always pointed at Israel. It's always the same old story. Some of these leftists and posers in the West, they're basically the Lord Haw-Haws for Hamas. They are doing its propagandistic bidding. And I find that really worrying.
Yeah, I mean, certainly. I mean, some of the newspaper reports and the web reports yesterday are just, it's always Israel claims, Hamas says. It's everything is reported as fact from Hamas. I mean, I'm like you, I take pretty much every area of authority, anyone saying something to me, with a pinch of salt and show me the evidence. But on balance, I'm going to choose to believe a government over a terrorist organisation. This, of course, what's been going on in Israel has massively dominated British politics in the last couple of years. We've seen them march on the streets. We've seen, of course, the horrific attack on a synagogue in Manchester just a few weeks ago, in which 2 men died by a man who, basically was claiming this is for the children, basically because all these reports of genocide against children in Gaza that we've seen on our television screens. Again, absolute lies, complete the whole thing, absolute lies. It's a war zone. People die in war zones, and it's terrible. But the latest development at the end of last week, and it's still ongoing, still no decision, is over this big football match. This is due to take place on the 6th of November between Tel Aviv Maccabi and Aston Villa in Birmingham. And we had that extraordinary decision by the sort of Birmingham, safety advisory group, councillors, police and others, that actually it was unsafe for this match to go ahead. And we've seen various different claims about, was it unsafe for the people of Birmingham? Was it unsafe for Aston Villa fans? Was it unsafe, as was claimed at one point, for Israel, Tel Aviv Maccabi fans, because they would not be able to be kept safe from whoever? It was never explained who. And then it was about policing resources. The Prime Minister stepped in. The Home Secretary apparently stepped in, although apparently not bothered when she first heard about it. What is the latest now? And has that decision been in any way affected by the decision to call off, basically a derby match in Tel Aviv between Maccabi and another rival Tel Aviv team?
I think the Aston Villa decision by that safety group is an outrageous decision. It really, really is. And now, Does Maccabi Tel Aviv have some rowdy fans and possibly some hooligans? Of course it does. Every football club does, pretty much. We have a lot of them here in the UK. Russian fans behave badly. All sorts of fans behave badly. But the vast majority of Maccabi Tel Aviv fans are decent, law-abiding people who love to watch football. And that who is being banned from coming to this country and attending a game. It is really actually quite grotesque. And my view is that if it's not safe for Jews, whether they're Jews from Israel or Jews from Britain, to attend a public event, then that event should be called off. There should be no football match, no cultural event, no street, no city, no town in which Jews are not safe. And if there is, then we have a serious sickness in this society, and I think that's what's been revealed.
And it is extraordinary that the same argument that is being used by the people who also, we've got a load of councillors, we've got a load of supposedly independent MPs, you know, the Jezbollah bunch of pro-Palestinian, pro-Gaza MPs, basically all saying the same thing, which is, you know, just that, well, you know, this is Israel's committing a genocide, we shouldn't have any of their teams here, that's what's unacceptable, you know, and it's all, let's face it, it's all code for we don't like Jews. That's how I read it, I'm afraid. But the same argument that, well, it's not safe, it's simply not safe, so it shouldn't be allowed to go ahead. Well, I don't think things aren't safe when we have those pro-Palestinian marches every other week in London, and lots of people don't feel safe. I would be quite happy to wander around with my Israeli flag along around the streets of London, being a proud supporter of the state of Israel and the right to exist. But I think that I would probably be arrested by the police for being provocative, or if I had a Star of David necklace, that would be provocative. And well, so clearly that's not safe either. But this is the thing. One of the justifications has been that there's been trouble with these fans before, and this is all centred on what happened in Amsterdam, was it last year, involving Ajax fans. Now, the thing is, you read the court reports about this, it wasn't fans on either side that were causing the trouble. It was basically, and they used the phrase, people, who are we kidding? It was a bunch of extremist radical Islamists who went on what they called in their WhatsApp groups a Jew hunt. A Jew hunt. And they basically chased down these Tel Aviv fans deliberately because they were Jewish. And actually, it wasn't even the Ajax fans that were involved. This was made very clear. And there was some response and, you know, angry reaction from the Tel Aviv Maccabi fans, and I think understandably in the circumstances. And then we've seen what happened in the football derby in Tel Aviv, cancelled over the risk to human lives. Basically, we had the Hapoel fans let off a load of flares in their own colours, and the match had to be abandoned, and then there was trouble outside. But there's no evidence, again, that it was Tel Aviv Maccabi fans who were involved in starting it or being a part of it. People are looking for any possible excuse, but we are just fundamentally in that situation where we've got a majority Muslim city, our second city in this country, where effectively Muslim self-appointed community leaders, councillors, some other MPs are basically saying, we control what happens here. We decide how it's policed. We decide who is policed, and we decide who gets to come here. And if you don't like it, there's going to be trouble. That does not sit well. You know,
that's so well described. That is what's happening. I think this country is surrendering to the Islamist mob. That's essentially what's happening here, and that's what's been happening for the past 2 years. And it really, not only does it not sit well, it's gone way, way too far. And I think a lot of people are waking up to this. You know, think about what we've seen in parts of the country over the past couple of years and in recent weeks. We've seen people in Islamist clothing, women in the burqa, men in Islamist dress, chanting Zionists off our streets. We know what that means. We're not stupid. We weren't born yesterday. We know it means no Jews. We've seen people saying, long live the Intifada. Now we have people celebrating because Jewish fans from Israel will be forbidden from attending a match. Yeah. This is Islamist tyranny on the streets of the United Kingdom, and we keep bowing down to it time and time again. And you're absolutely right about Amsterdam. In Amsterdam, it was a mini pogrom against the fans from Tel Aviv. It was a Jew hunt, as you said, by mostly Arab men, gangs of mostly Arab immigrants who made fun of Jews, who made jokes about Hitler in their WhatsApp groups, who said, let's beat up some effing Jews, and they did. One of the attacks on a Maccabi fan was so bad that the perpetrator was accused of attempted murder. This is how serious it was. And people aren't talking about that because they hate Maccabi Tel Aviv. And more importantly, they hate the fact that they are Jews.
Well, indeed. And the thing is, you just said this is surrendering to the Islamist mob. And again, it's very important to make a distinction between people who are supporters of a radical Islamist ideology, which is very, very dangerous. And frankly, we need to go out of this country. I'm sorry, I don't want it here. Don't want it anywhere, but I definitely don't want it here. And also moderate Muslims. But here's the thing. Because we have, was it 4, 5, 6 million Muslim people living in this country? I don't believe at all that the majority of those people walk around with this level of hatred in their heart. I refuse to believe that. I'm sorry, people will say I'm naive. I refuse to believe that. But we're going to need to have some moderate Muslim voices speaking up, more than just one odd community leader speaking up and saying no. These people are welcome in our city, the city which we've made our home, in Britain, where we ascribe to the tolerant and welcoming, diversity that we're told so much about on the left. And we will act ourselves to ensure they are safe, if necessary. We will speak out against the Islamist extremists to make sure those people are safe. Now, that's, I'm afraid, what we're going to need to do, because I know there are people like you and me who speak up, on behalf of Israel, on behalf of British Jews in this country, even though we are not Jewish ourselves, and have no sort of, link with the country of Israel at all before these horrific events over the last couple of years. But, you need people who will speak up and who will say, no, not on my watch, not in my name. Where are those people?
I could not agree more. And I completely agree with you. The vast majority of Muslims in this country are good, law-abiding people who just want to get on with their lives. They are not all the radical Islamists screaming blue murder about the Jewish state morning, noon and night. That's really true. But you're right. We need more voices. There are some brilliant groups like Muslims Against Anti-Semitism. There are ex-Muslim groups who talk about the importance of freedom of speech and freedom of religion. There are great Muslim commentators making brilliant points about the scourge of anti-Semitism, the scourge of Islamophobia. There are voices out there, but there are not enough. And the tragic fact for our law-abiding Muslim communities is that a lot of this is being done in their name, falsely, by people who claim to represent them but have never been voted for by them. These extremists do claim to speak for Muslim feeling, for Muslim sentiment. If I was an ordinary Muslim going about my daily business, I would say, screw you, you don't speak for me. When we start hearing more of that, that's when we know we will have reached a positive turning point. But sadly, it's not coming yet.
It absolutely is not. Brendan O'Neill, always so good to talk to you, Chief Political Writer at Spiked Online. Thank you for that. Sam Armstrong, listening to all of that. I mean, this thing, and in no way, and by the way, I'm of Irish Catholic heritage on one side. I didn't think that I had to speak up and condemn, IRA atrocities or anything like that. I'm not talking about that. I just don't understand why. I think the radical Islamist ideology in this country is a minority. It's a very large, far too large a minority, but it is a minority. And the best way of dealing with it would actually be if the majority did speak out against it.
Yeah, and we have to be clear that there have been a large number of polls over a long period of time of British Muslims in which far too many, and I mean far too many, including of those that express an opinion, more have an unacceptable view than an acceptable view on questions like, do Jews control the media? No, a plurality, so more British Muslims believe they do than don't. The majority of British Muslims don't have an opinion on the question. And let's be clear, that is reassuring, in a sense. But we have to be clear, there is too much of this, and until our politicians are prepared to actually even speak about that, not shut people down like Robert Jenrick was a couple of weeks ago when he spoke about Handsworth, we're not going to see more of this problem.
Yeah, exactly. He identified exactly the problem that we know is there.